Good morning, everyone, and you're welcome to the BIM Coordinators Summit 2023. My name is Alan Hore. I'm Head of Quantity Surveying in TU Dublin, and I'm also one of the founding directors of the Construction IT Alliance in Ireland. Just a little bit about the Construction IT Alliance. We're delighted to be hosting this Technology and Practice Lounge this morning. And I suppose what we do is we actively encourage our members to take full advantage of emerging and currently available technologies. We do this through three main mechanisms. We have events, research and training. So we would have, for example, up to 17 years of recurring funding now from the Irish state to support companies up to 40% of the cost of their training. So the focus of my presentation this morning, my brief presentation, is accelerating BIM adoption in Ireland. So I suppose just to summarise, we'll go right to what's happened this summer. The government have announced the introduction of BIM requirements on government-funded projects, public works projects, from January 2024. Now that will mainly involve the Tier 1 projects, the projects over 100 million. But to get to that point, there was a lot of activity and research in the background. So looking at the left-hand side there, the Construction IT Alliance was involved in the BIM Innovation Capability Programme for Ireland. And I was involved in leading that, and we carried out a global BIM study at the time, 2017. We also did a detailed study of the use of BIM in Ireland in 2017 and 2019. And that culminated, I suppose, in the formation of a National BIM Council and the publication of a roadmap for digital transition for the construction industry for 2018 to 21. But we all know what happened in 2020 with the pandemic, so that kind of slowed things down a little bit. But really, hats off to the government and the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, because they then took up the baton, formed the construction sector group in Ireland. Various reports came out of that, including a recent report on a roadmap for MMC. And what they have done in Ireland is funded three principal vehicles to, I suppose, drive construction innovation and digital adoption in Ireland. One was the formation of the Build Digital project, which I was involved with TU Dublin in winning that bid a few years ago. Also the formation of a Centre of Excellence in Galway called Construct Innovate, and also the continued funding of Mount Lucas, which is a national certification training centre in the Midlands. So there's been a lot of support for construction innovation and digital adoption in Ireland. When we look across the EU, there has been a lot of momentum there as well. You can see there in the centre, the EU are acutely aware of Ireland's, I suppose, BIM maturity, and that's just an extract from the fiche for Ireland. And you can see that we're very active from a national strategy point of view, from a public procurement point of view, funding schemes, education, and so on. Also, I'm involved with the European Innovation Council and SMEs Executive Agency, and that's a really interesting agency, because what they're doing now is they're looking to really help SMEs across the EU. They've developed a maturity scan, they've got an interactive handbook, they have best practice case studies and training videos, and they're constantly working on that, and Ireland have a role to play in that as well. From a global perspective, Ireland are doing quite well. We would be, I suppose, categorised as having mid-maturity. If you can make out the centre of the diagram there, you can see that the Nordics are the most mature in their use of BIM. So I suppose one of the advantages is that we're kind of hanging on the coattails of the UK, but we're categorised in that mid-region, which is a great story for Ireland. I've just finished working with Build Digital project on a new report, and this is looking at supporting the delivery of information management and BIM in Ireland. And what we did is we looked at the United Kingdom, we looked at the Nordic countries, and we looked at Australasia. And we've learned so much from them that we know now we don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to developing templates and guidelines for BIM use on public projects or even in the private sector. So we've also used this opportunity to connect with these, with the various groupings in those countries. I just want to talk briefly about what I think is probably one of the more important publications in the last number of years, and that was the World Economic Forum Action Plan to Accelerate BIM Adoption in 2018. And what I like about this plan is the simplicity of the message. Many roadmaps, and we have many roadmaps in Ireland, they're highly complex and difficult to manage. So if we just look at the simplicity of this plan, number one, to have a successful BIM mandate or a successful BIM program in Ireland, we need to set the right motivation to increase the adoption and effectively monitor its use within the country. Secondly, we need to collaborate, we need to work in a culture of collaboration supported by standard information management, international management standards, allowing for BIM to support those projects. And last but not least, we need to enable all the stakeholders to acquire the skills, not just the design community, but also the construction managers, the project managers, the quantity surveyors, the planners, and to drive that cultural change. This is the big problem in the industry, required to realize a digital transformation. The challenge of trying to accelerate BIM adoption in Ireland is that it's taking longer than the average ice age to do it. And this is a problem that we need to really deal with. So I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you about the BIM gathering. I talked about the fact that CITA run events. We have a signature event every year, and on the 20th of September, we are in the centre of the country, at the very heart of the country, looking at accelerating BIM adoption. We've two fringe events on the 18th and 19th of September at lunchtime, but we are going to have over 50 presentations on that day. We are going to be joined by, UK representatives, Nordic representatives. The EU are going to be there. PwC are managing the EU BIM program for the under that program I mentioned. And I think, if you can find the time, join us on the 20th of September. One thing unique about the BIM gathering is that this is our 6th event. It's the 10th anniversary of the gathering. In 2013, Ireland introduced this gathering concept. It was a kind of a tourism initiative. Some of you might remember it. And since then, we have had a lot of documented proceedings. And over those 6 years, we were able to learn so much from what the industry was telling us. So what I wanted to do is just take each of these action points and maybe break them down a little bit more for you. So let's look at motivation just for a minute. The first thing we need to do from a motivational point of view to accelerate BIM adoption is to articulate the benefits across the life cycle. So we've got companies, we've got industry groups, and we've got government. Now, companies would include clients, contractors, architects, engineers, any companies working within the industry. And what we saw in the gathering is lots of, self-promotion, companies talking about their BIM capability, supporting their growth, and adding value to their clients' business. We need to disseminate, and we need the companies to do more of that. The industry groups need to disseminate case studies, and really we need to monitor national BIM adoption. And that's so important so that we get sort of evidence that we're making progress. And of course, the government themselves need to learn and use BIM on pilot projects before they go, live on projects. So again, the government should also try and have a role to play to disseminate the benefits and the lessons that they would have learned on its use. Think of BIM as a value creator and not as a cost. And the only way we can do that is to help companies by developing benchmarks where costs and benefits can be measured. And again, companies can articulate that. I'm calling for the development of a collaborative industry standard for ROI. Now, I know the Scottish Future Trust team have developed a nice tool that we could use, but companies do need to see the value, and the only way they can do that is to compare that with the cost, and then of course get the government to publish, their ROI assessments on pilot projects. And of course, from a motivational point of view, companies need to articulate or approach BIM as the first step in their digital transformation. So what we'd be saying to companies, look, avail of the supports that are there. There are supports from local enterprise offices, Enterprise Ireland, SkillNets, the HEA. There are supports out there for businesses to purchase software and to invest in BIM. So my message is use those supports. Industry bodies like the Architectural Institute, the Society of Chartered Surveyors, the CIF, the Construction Industry Federation, need to prepare guidance to support digital transformation of SMEs. And of course, the Build Digital project as well in Ireland. And of course, the government urgently need to create national BIM guidelines for the development of public assets. Now, if we look at, say, collaboration, it's very important that, that integrated contracts are used and not the traditional linear design and build contracts that we're used to. So companies, for example, need to respond to the government requirements for BIM. Industry groups need to prepare international procurement reviews, like I showed you earlier. And also, there needs to be a significant increase in the use of BIM on public works contracts, but with a new risk-reward model. For example, integrated project delivery, more use of design and build, and so on. The key for successful BIM adoption is definitely early collaboration and communication with stakeholders. So what companies need to do is they need to revise their corporate structures and their processes for collaboration. Industry groups need to disseminate the benefits of collaboration through events, through training, and of course the government, and this is the key, the government need to develop new contracts, strategic contracts that are truly collaborative and not just simply place BIM guidance within an already existing contract. And of course, last but not least, we need to use data sharing standards and open BIM. And so again, a big call to the companies is get that accreditation for international information management standards. We'll be saying to people like the Build Digital project, actively engage with Building Smart International and drive an open BIM agenda so that we have a technology agnostic ethos. And also the government need to develop regulations for protecting intellectual property and data ownership. So last but not least, then we have the whole area of enablement. I suppose this is where I'm quite passionate about it because I'm an educator. So what we need to do, the companies must avail of the broad set of upskilling programs available. All the universities across the country here have developed fantastic programs. And I think what's important is companies, in many respects, don't know about these or are not availing them to the extent that they should. There's funding available through people like, the Professional SkillNet, Construction Skill, the CITA SkillNet, to fund up to 40% of their training costs. Industry groups, again, need to develop multidisciplinary competencies. We talked about this in the roadmap. When the students exit the universities, they need to have certain competencies. And I think all of the different professional groups need to have a sort of a baseline of competencies there. Again, cultural change is so important. And I think industry groups like Build Digital, like the Society of Chartered Surveyors, Architects, the Royal Institute of Architects of Ireland, need to really focus on behavioural change. It's not necessarily about the power of BIM or the skills that you need. It's about that cultural shift that's so important. And of course, the government again need to integrate information management standards into their public works contracts and into their contracts. and move things forward. And I think the great story about Ireland is that there is a long-term commitment there. Great work by the construction sector group, by the subgroup of construction innovation and digital adoption chaired by PJ Rudden, but we're not supporting the SMEs enough in Ireland. So what I would say to companies, exploit that business opportunity and encourage your supply chain to adopt BIM. I'm also calling this morning for the government to develop a roadmap for BIM and to support SMEs in a more, I suppose, tangible way, because we don't have any roadmap for BIM in Ireland. There's no order to it in Ireland. And of course, again, another message for the government is to make a long-term commitment to BIM in public works and supporting SMEs. So just to summarise, I hope I'm on time here, there is a direct relevance for Ireland and any country to look at the World Economic Forum framework. There's no better platform, there's no better group to advise the nations as to what should be done. It's so simple, but it's effective. Gatherings, the CITA BIM gathering I mentioned earlier on, and other national fora like this event here today, like DigiCon, all have a role to play, and they're so important to get that message out there. There needs to be a renewed focus and order for BIM in Ireland. At the moment, it's a bit scattered. And what I would call for this morning is the re-establishment of the National BIM Council of Ireland, so that that council can engage with other international councils. There isn't one currently. We had one back in 2019. It seems to have faltered a little bit. We need to reintroduce it. And what we need to do with that roadmap, that new roadmap, is align it to the national priorities, the green priorities, the lean priorities, and the BIM priorities. It's very encouraging to see the introduction of the mandate in Ireland next year, but of course it'll take quite a few years for it to bed in, and it'll only relate to those large projects. And last but not least, we're all conscious that the construction sector group, Construction Innovate, Build Digital, have an important role to play in BIM adoption, but CITA also have a role to play as we represent the core of the industry here in Ireland. So really, that's my summary. If you're available to come to Athlone on the 20th, we'd love to see you. It's going to be a fantastic event, and we have over 50 presentations, and we'll have, government representatives, companies, industry groups, and we'll talk a lot more about those three, interventions that I spoke about. So thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to meeting all the speakers this morning. So we have this morning Natalia Oliveira from Women in BIM, Sunhill Joshi from DG TRA, Danny Massey from Think Project, Sonali Dope from Excelis, Andrew Bellerby from DBM Vercon Services, Matthew Conliffe from SiteDesk, Francisco Rees from BIMS, and Daniel Lanke from Limson. So I hope I gave you kind of an overview of BIM adoption in Ireland and how we're getting on here and where we need to go to. So that's me. Thank you.